Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Carolynne Lockling, and today we are going to discuss urban heat islands and why they are an environmental injustice. For this podcast, we will specifically analyze conditions within the United States. Though this is a worldwide phenomenon, I will cover the history of this, as well as what circumstances urban heat islands occur under. One of my team members, Alani, will discuss the effects urban heat islands have on people health wise and the surrounding environment. Pamela and Viviana will then explain why some groups are more susceptible to these impacts than others because of historically racist laws put in place. And lastly, Anne will provide potential solutions to address this issue. Urban heat islands were first discovered by British meteorologist Luke Howard in the 19th century. Howard was studying temperatures around the City of London and whether or not it had any correlation to a lower average of snowfall. Through his research, Howard discovered two things. A. London was on average 3 degrees warmer than the surrounding rural areas, and B. Places closer to the center of the city were the warmest and therefore received the least amount of snowfall. Howard hypothesized that the overall effect was caused by the city's structure and residents' habits. Buildings were in close proximity to each other, the city had a high population density, and residents frequently burned fires in their homes during the colder months. Climatologist Gordon Manley built off Howard's research down the road. In his study, he noted a similar trend. Snowfall was denser in rural areas and lesser in urban ones. Additionally, Manley was the one who coined the term urban heat islands. Urban heat islands are a phenomenon felt worldwide in urban areas. Within the United States specifically, the three cities that suffer the most intense are Las Vegas, Nevada, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Denver, Colorado. These cities, among many others within the United States, share in the conditions that Howard identified contribute to the formation of urban heat islands. They still have high population densities, even more so now because the human population has grown since the 19th century. They have tall buildings, concentrated pollution within urban areas, and an overall lack of green space. Industrial materials such as concrete and asphalt, as well as the use of inefficient air conditioning and other electronics, further exacerbate warming conditions within urban areas. Consequently, city residents are subjected to extreme weather conditions. Alani will further discuss how exposure impacts these communities.
Hi, I'm Alani, and I'm going to be talking about some of the health effects that are caused by urban heat islands. This includes extreme temperatures, which can exacerbate chronic conditions like respiratory issues. Asthma is one common effect that can be caused from stagnant air trapping allergens, triggering allergies and asthma, as harmful pollutants cause further breathing difficulty. This smog is an effect that has been identified as a cause of many premature deaths and hospitalizations, as well as an increase in people afflicted with asthma, lung, and otherwise respiratory-related illnesses that are often furthered by outside factors like these. These pollutants can then cause the surface ozone to become thinner in that area, further intensifying the amount of heat felt there and causing possible wildfires, which have the potential to kill people from either the smoke or the flames, as well as economic devastation when homes and businesses are destroyed. However, due to global warming, these events are only being increased at a faster rate. Most commonly, extreme heat causes heat stroke or heat exhaustion, but they can also cause the development of kidney disease, increased risk of stroke, chest pain, heart attacks, and lung cancer due to pollution. These issues can be as extreme as to lead to death or permanent disability. In fact, between 2004 and 2018, 10,527 people died from heat-related causes, with an annual amount of 702 heat-related deaths in the U.S. And with low-income residents typically living in warmer climates already, and with higher mortality rates of Black and Latinx people, this does not bode well for the impoverished people of the world. Heat-induced illnesses are a huge issue, and as a research report published by Climate Central revealed, that of the 60 cities they analyzed, 57 experienced significant urban heat island impacts over a 10-year period, with some areas having a temperature variance of 27 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the surrounding rural regions. More than 80% of the U.S. population resides in metropolitan areas, a significant portion of which will be vulnerable to these issues of extreme climate events as they increase. This is especially true with places like Arizona, California, and Texas, which make up 23% of the U.S., but also contribute to 1/3 of these deaths, adding to and worsening things like ischemic heart diseases, and causing 10% of the deaths from it, as well as 10% of the deaths from high blood pressure, which can increase things like heart attack and stroke, and contributing to 18% of the deaths from alcohol poisoning and drug overdoses. Ironically, the same medications used for heart diseases and hypertension, also known as high blood pressure, are also heat-blocking agents, which causes increased risk of a reaction to extreme heat by those it is prescribed to.
Many researchers have found that in the world's largest cities there are disparities in the urban heat island effect. Examples within cities such as Atlanta, Georgia, Los Angeles, California, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Copenhagen, Denmark, and Melbourne, Australia show that this is a worldwide problem. The data from environmental research letters which analyzed this came to the conclusion that there is a correlation between income inequality and urban heat island index. The data shown within these cities shows a problem of excessive heat that is far worse for low-income and marginalized communities due to many factors. Out of all the cities included in this particular study across the world, 75% of these cities disproportionately impact lower-income neighborhoods. Due to disparities in wealth inequality across the world, the most marginalized communities are the ones impacted by the urban heat island effect. The health issues that were mentioned previously are mainly impacting these communities. They are minority communities and often low income and cannot afford to have or use appliances such as air conditioners or other cooling systems to avoid heat sicknesses and increase heat. In the United States, according to a 2015 residential energy consumption survey, approximately 90% of homes across the United States have air conditioning. Furthermore, about 75% of low-income households have some type of air conditioning or cooling system. It also finds that 50% of low-income residents use a far less efficient type of air conditioner, which tends to be more accessible and cheaper. Yet, as these less efficient air conditioners cool indoor spaces that they are in, the outside environment is heated up to 1.5 degrees Celsius at night. So air conditioner usage increases as temperatures outside increase as well. These more accessible air conditioning systems also contribute to another problem within low-income neighborhoods, one of air pollution, further putting these communities at risk for public health issues and long-term health complications caused by air pollution. Across the world, the most impacted communities also lack electricity in general for these appliances and are left to deal with various heat-related sicknesses without the help of air conditioners or fans. The need for food and other necessities also does not stop through heat waves and increased heat illnesses, so these communities are often forced to work through the impacts of extreme heat. Oftentimes, these low-income people work outdoors, surrounded by concrete in neighborhoods that do not have shade that relieve the heat. For many of these people, staying cool is an unaffordable luxury across the world that leaves them suffering through heat waves and the urban heat island effect due to financial inequalities.
As mentioned by my team partner, impact of exposure is higher in communities with low-income individuals and minorities. Therefore, in these communities, there are some major effects that impact our health. Also, one of the most characteristic attributes of cities is social inequality, specifically the uneven distribution of resources and wealth primarily underpinned by structural racism and classism. Residential segregation and colonial annexation generates predictable ecological patterns in vegetation, air, and water quality, microclimate, soils, and built environments through the rapid influence of resources to specific areas. Based on the research conducted by Jeff Carmody and his partner Matthew A. Richmond, it was found that in the previous years displacing minorities to certain areas of the city has occurred. This happened by landowners raising the rent, remodeling the area, attracting more and more people with money, but at the same time leaving those with no other choices but to move to the side of the city in which they are able to pay. These places are located near facilities where we dump our garbage and process dangerous chemical. People living here have no or little protection from the industries around them. These minorities should not be forced to live in hazardous conditions because of their race, income, or natural origin. Over the years, America has struggled to implement serious policies that protect these communities. For example, in 1982, residents of Warren County, North Carolina stood up for their community against the plan to dump contaminated soil in their communities. Also in 1987, the United Church of Christ Racial Justice Commission performed a study in which they found out that around the country, hazardous waste facilities were more likely to be located near minority communities. Now, what is our government doing about this issue? Well, throughout the years, presidents have signed new bills to protect the injustice in these communities. For example, in 1992, President Bush founded the Office of Environmental Justice inside the EPA, which its purpose is to address the needs of vulnerable populations by decreasing environmental burdens and increasing environmental benefits, and working collaboratively to build a healthy and suitable communities, as well as bills in which they require federal agencies to consider environmental justice in their policies, as well as extending civil rights protection to environmental discrimination. But how did we get to these problems today? When looking back the history of America, we can find housing segregation and redlining. In 1934, the National Housing Act introduced ideas like a 30-year mortgage and low fixed interest rates, which allowed low-income people to afford housing. The HOLC created residential security maps in which people were located based on their income and race. For example, in their map, green meant that the best area and the best people were living there, referring to those who are businessmen and wealthy. Blue meant good people, like white-collar families. Yellow meant declining areas, which were working-class families. And red meant detrimental influences on hardest low-class people. Studies showed the people living in the red areas were mostly African Americans, Asians, and low minorities. Therefore, we can see that people with wealth and or white are more likely to be located in better places, while minorities are left with places near industrial plants or in places in which the water is not drinkable, leading them to suffer diseases and die at a premature age.
Many of the solutions to urban heat islands have to do with how people can ensure that they are not affected by the effects of urban heat islands. So the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States government is a great resource on this, and they actually share with consumers and people living in urban regions
ways that they can lessen their effects of urban heat islands. So firstly, they recommend increasing the shade around your home. So the way to do this would be to plant trees and other vegetation. Individuals with homes in urban populations can make a better impact by creating green space. So if the government is unwilling or unable to afford to create green space, individuals can, and they can make a big difference. So cooling shade is provided by planting trees and other vegetation, as well as, reducing exposure to children that are playing in urban areas from UV radiation. Green roofs are one option for consumers living in urban populations to better the situation in urban heat islands. So green roofs and cool roofs equally allow the temperature inside the home to be cooler. This reduces the energy bill for the home, and it provides heating and cooling, which is going to end up decreasing each and every individual's energy bill. And also heat waves for a home that has either a green roof or a cool roof, which a cool roof would help to reflect the sunlight and heat away from your home. Both of these options are going to support those that would be affected by heat waves. So people that aren't able to afford to cool their homes adequately, they might have negative effects during a heat wave, but these ways can help to preempt a heat wave and not allow that heat to affect them negatively. Appliances and equipment are a huge indicator if a person is able to handle living in an urban heat island. So EPA's Energy Star label is the best way for an individual to purchase a product that is energy efficient. If it's an appliance or any kind of piece of equipment such as lighting, heating, cooling, electronics, or office equipment. So these are not only better for the environment, utilizing less energy, but they'll save the individual money on their energy bill in the long run.